court is now in recess as star witness Michael Cohen testifies in former President Trump's criminal hush money trial. Trump's former lawyer and fixer is providing testimony that could ultimately determine the outcome of the trial. ABC News executive editorial producer John Santucci, senior reporter Catherine Falders, and legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer join me now for more on this. John, what's the latest from court?
We're on a break. It's been a really tense morning so far, so I think that break is needed for everybody in the room. I think what's been interesting from just our team's observations is how quickly we moved past, the niceties, if you will, right into the meat and potatoes of this case.
Something absolutely devastating just happened in Donald Trump's criminal trial, and the reaction in that courtroom tells you everything you need to know about how badly this went for Trump. Prosecutors just played a secret recording of Trump's own voice, and what happened next was stunning. The courtroom gasped. People literally gasped out loud. The jury sat there completely frozen, listening with their mouths open. Trump sat at the defense table with his eyes closed, swaying his head, looking absolutely defeated. And Michael Cohen, Trump's former fixer, who secretly made the recording, stared straight ahead, refusing to make eye contact with Trump. This was the moment in Trump's trial. This was the evidence that changed everything. And I'll show you exactly what was on that tape in a moment. But first, you need to understand just how catastrophic this recording was for Trump's entire defense strategy. But real quick, before we get into this, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built John Brown's show, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, please subscribe, because you might think you are but aren't. Your subscription actually matters here. All right, let's get into what happened in that courtroom. The court is in recess right now, but what just took place before the break was absolutely explosive. Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer and fixer, is on the witness stand providing testimony that could ultimately determine the outcome of the trial. And ABC News is reporting that it's been a really tense morning so far. The courtroom needed that break because of how intense things got. And here's what's remarkable: the testimony moved incredibly fast. They didn't waste time on small talk or preliminary questions. They went straight to the most damaging evidence. They got the doorman story. They got the Karen McDougal story. And then they played the audio recording of Donald Trump and Michael Cohen talking about how Karen McDougal was going to be paid off. Now let me bring the receipts here, because what happened when that recording played is stunning. According to observers in the courtroom, when prosecutors hit play on that audio, the entire room went silent. The jury leaned in. Everyone stopped what they were doing and listened with complete attention. And then they heard Trump's voice. Trump talking about financing the hush money. Trump discussing how to structure the payment. Trump asking questions about opening a company. Trump's own voice directly in the middle of the payoff scheme. And according to legal analysts, that moment changed absolutely everything about the trial. Notice what reporters are saying about the atmosphere in that room. The eye contact and lack thereof. Michael Cohen looking straight ahead at prosecutors. Donald Trump, eyes closed, sometimes swaying his head a little bit, but looking straight ahead as well. Very little from either man in that courtroom. Think about what that tells you. These are two men who used to talk to each other multiple times a day. Trump and Cohen were inseparable. Cohen was Trump's fixer, his lawyer, his problem solver, his cleanup guy. They spoke constantly. And now they're sitting in the same courtroom, and neither of them can look at each other. Cohen is staring at the prosecutors. Trump has his eyes closed, swaying his head. They can't even make eye contact because of how devastating this evidence is. And the jury? According to observers, the jury was stone cold throughout all of this. They're watching everything, taking notes, paying attention to every single detail. Because there's a lot that prosecutors are trying to get through with Michael Cohen as they build up to the Stormy Daniels payment. Now here's what makes this recording so absolutely devastating for Trump. You can't argue with a recording. You can't spin it away. You can't claim the media is lying about what was said. You can't say prosecutors are taking things out of context. The jurors heard it with their own ears. They heard Trump's actual voice unmistakably. They heard exactly what Trump said in his own words. And legal experts are saying that's incredibly powerful in a courtroom. That's almost impossible to defend against. That's exactly the kind of evidence that juries remember and that directly influences their verdict. When jurors can hear the actual voice of the defendant talking about the crime they're accused of committing, that's devastating to the defense case. Let me walk you through what was actually on that recording, because this is damning. The recording was made on September 6, 2016. That's just 2 months before the election. Trump is running for president. Trump is desperate to win. And Michael Cohen secretly recorded Trump without Trump knowing about it or consenting to it. And on that tape, Cohen and Trump are discussing a plan to reimburse American Media Inc., which is the company that owns the National Enquirer. The National Enquirer had paid $150,000 to Playboy model Karen McDougal to keep her absolutely quiet about her alleged affair with Trump. That's what's called a catch-and-kill operation. The media company buys the story and then kills it so the public never hears it, so voters never learn about it before they cast their ballots. And that $150,000 had to be paid back somehow. That had to be financed and reimbursed. And on the tape, Cohen and Trump are talking about how to execute that and structure the payment. And here's what makes the recording so extraordinarily damaging. Trump is heard asking Cohen, "What financing? What are we talking about here?" Cohen replies that they need to open up a company for the transaction. They need to set up a financial mechanism to reimburse the National Enquirer for the payment to McDougal. And Trump's right there on the tape discussing the actual mechanics of how to do it. Notice what that means. Trump's not detached from this. Trump's not just vaguely aware that Cohen is dealing with hush money somewhere in the background. Trump is personally and actively involved in the discussion about how to structure the payment. Trump is talking about opening a company. Trump is directly engaged in planning the financial transaction. When the jurors heard that tape being played in the courtroom, they were absolutely locked in on every single word. Prosecutors played it for them so they could hear Trump's actual voice with their own ears. So they could hear exactly what Trump said with no filter. So they could understand that Trump wasn't just a bystander in this scheme. Trump was an active participant. Trump was making decisions about the payment. Trump was discussing how to handle it. Trump was asking questions about how to structure it. And legal analysts called that recording an absolute bombshell. Legal experts said it's nearly impossible to get around a recording like that in a courtroom. When you have crystal clear audio of the defendant talking about the alleged crime being committed, that's powerful evidence. That's the kind of thing that juries find very difficult to dismiss or explain away or rationalize. And that's why the jury ultimately convicted Trump on 34 counts of falsifying business records. The recording was a critical turning point in the trial. The recording was the moment when Trump's own voice became the most damaging evidence against him. The recording was Trump essentially confessing on tape to the financial scheme that the prosecution was trying to prove. Now let me explain the context here, because timing matters. This tape was made on September 6th, 2016. The election is in November 2016. Just 2 months away, Trump is running for president. Trump is trying to win the White House. And Trump's team knows that stories about affairs and payoffs could seriously damage Trump's chances of winning. So they're working hard to suppress those stories. They're working to keep them quiet and out of the media. And on that tape, Cohen and Trump are discussing how to deal with the Karen McDougal situation once and for all. McDougal had sold her story to the National Enquirer. David Pecker, who runs the National Enquirer, had paid $150,000 for the exclusive rights to her story. And then the National Enquirer didn't publish the story. They killed it completely. They bought the story specifically so nobody else could publish it. Specifically so the public wouldn't hear about it. Specifically so voters wouldn't know about Trump's alleged affair before they voted. But now somebody has to pay for that $150,000. The National Enquirer spent that money. American Media Inc. spent that money. And that money needs to be reimbursed somehow. That's where Trump comes in. Trump or Trump's organization or somebody connected to Trump needs to pay back that $150,000 that was used to suppress the story. And on the tape, Cohen and Trump are discussing how to make that happen and how to structure it so it doesn't look suspicious. Cohen is telling Trump that they need to set up a company to handle the payment. They need a financial vehicle. They need a mechanism to get the money to American Media Inc. without it looking like Trump is directly paying for the hush money himself. Because if it looks like Trump is directly paying to suppress a story about his affair, that's a massive problem. That looks like an illegal contribution to his own campaign. That looks like using campaign funds to suppress damaging stories before an election. That looks like election fraud. So they need to structure it in a way that obscures and hides the connection between Trump and the payment. And Trump is right there on the tape discussing this and asking questions. Trump is asking what financing? Trump is talking about opening a company. Trump is engaged in planning how to execute the hush money payment. Trump is not just signing off on something Cohen proposes to him. Trump is actively involved in the discussion about how to structure the deal. Trump is making decisions about how to handle it. Trump is asking questions. Trump is participating in the planning process. Trump is literally helping to construct the scheme. Now, when prosecutors played that tape for the jury, they were making a very specific and compelling argument. They were saying, look, Trump is not innocent here. Trump is not just a bystander in this scheme. Trump is directly involved in this operation. Trump is using his own voice to participate in planning a hush money payment. Trump is trying to suppress a story that could damage his election prospects. Trump is aware that what he's doing is problematic enough that it needs to be structured carefully to avoid looking like campaign finance violations. Trump understands the legal risk but proceeds anyway. And that's really important because Trump's defense strategy was essentially, I didn't know what Cohen was doing. I didn't authorize the hush money payments. Cohen did this on his own without my knowledge. Cohen made these decisions without telling me about them. I'm not responsible for what Cohen did. But the recording completely destroys that defense. The recording shows Trump actively and directly involved. The recording shows Trump making decisions about the payment. The recording shows Trump discussing the actual mechanics of how to execute the scheme. The recording shows Trump couldn't claim ignorance if he tried. Legal analysts listening to the tape said it was incredibly powerful evidence against Trump. They said, it's hard for a jury to ignore a recording like that. When jurors can hear the actual voice of the defendant talking about the alleged crime, that's almost impossible for a defense lawyer to overcome. The recording is objective evidence. The recording can't be disputed or taken out of context. The jurors heard it themselves directly. The jurors heard Trump's voice themselves. The jurors heard what Trump said in his own words. And that's extremely difficult for a defense lawyer to argue against or explain away. Now let me show you what happened to Trump during this testimony, because his reaction tells you everything. According to courtroom observers, Trump sat there with his eyes closed, sometimes swaying his head a little bit, but looking straight ahead. Trump couldn't even watch. Trump had his eyes closed while his own voice was being played discussing hush money payments. Trump was swaying his head like he was trying to tune it out or make it go away. And Trump refused to look at Michael Cohen, the man who made the recording, and Cohen refused to look at Trump. These two men who used to talk multiple times a day, who were inseparable for years, who worked together on everything, now can't even make eye contact in the courtroom. And you know why? Because both of them know how devastating that recording is. Both of them know it's impossible to defend against. Both of them know that Trump's own voice just convicted him, and Trump was absolutely furious about that tape being played in the courtroom. Trump attacked the prosecution for playing it and using his own words against him. Trump attacked Cohen for recording him without permission. Trump attacked the judge for allowing the evidence to be presented. Trump was angry because he knew how damaging it was. Trump knew that jurors were going to hear his own voice and make a decision to convict him. Trump knew that there was no way to spin a recording of himself talking about hush money and financing. Trump knew that his own words were going to be used as evidence against him in court, and he was absolutely right about that. Now, here's what makes recording so incredibly powerful as evidence in a courtroom. Jurors trust recordings completely. Recordings are objective and factual. You can't dispute a recording. You can't claim the media is lying about what's on it. You can't say the prosecution is twisting your words when they play the actual recording. The recording is what it is. The jurors heard it themselves directly. The jurors heard Trump's actual voice. And that's incredibly powerful in a courtroom. That's the kind of evidence that changes verdicts. That's the kind of evidence that makes jurors confident in their decision to convict. That's the kind of evidence that sticks with jurors even after they leave the jury box. And the prosecution had to prove that Trump was involved in the hush money scheme. The prosecution had to show that Trump made decisions about the payment. The prosecution had to demonstrate that Trump was aware of what was happening and approved it. And that recording did all of that perfectly. That recording showed Trump involved and active. That recording showed Trump making decisions about how to handle it. That recording showed Trump approving the plan and the structure. That recording was exactly the evidence the prosecution needed to prove their case beyond reasonable doubt to a jury. Legal experts said at the time that the recording was an absolute game changer for the prosecution. Legal analysts said it was hard to get around a recording like that in a courtroom setting. When a jury can hear the defendant's own voice talking about the alleged crime, conviction is much more likely and much easier to achieve. And the experts were completely right. The jury convicted Trump on 34 counts of falsifying business records related to hush money. The jury believed the recording, the jury trusted what they heard Trump say on that tape, and the jury decided Trump was guilty based in part on what they heard on the tape. Now here's what's important about this from a broader perspective. Trump has a pattern of his own words becoming evidence against him in legal proceedings. The hush money recording is one example. But there's also the classified documents recording where Trump is heard discussing classified material at his Mar-a-Lago club. Trump is heard calling a military plan highly confidential and secret. Trump is heard talking about classified information like it's no big deal. And that recording was also incredibly damaging to Trump's legal position. That recording also showed Trump's own voice as evidence of his handling of classified material and his knowledge that it was classified. So Trump has multiple recordings out there where his own voice is being used against him in legal proceedings. Trump has recordings where he's discussing hush money payments to suppress stories about affairs. Trump has recordings where he's discussing classified documents and military plans and sensitive intelligence. Trump has recordings where he's talking about schemes and plans that prosecutors are using as evidence of his crimes. And every time these recordings come out and become public, it's damaging to Trump. Every time jurors or judges hear Trump's own voice, it's bad for Trump's legal position. Every time a recording surfaces, Trump's legal situation gets worse and his credibility deteriorates further. This is a massive problem for Trump because recordings are almost impossible to defend against in court. You can't argue with audio evidence. You can't dispute what you hear. You can't claim the media is lying when you hear the actual voice saying the actual words in real time. And Trump doesn't seem to understand that danger or learn from it. Trump keeps talking. Trump keeps making statements and having conversations. Trump keeps creating recordings of himself talking about things he shouldn't be talking about. And then those recordings get leaked or discovered or played in court, and they become evidence against him that destroys his defense. The trial showed that the jury took that tape extremely seriously and gave it enormous weight. The jury listened intently to every word. The jury paid complete attention to every detail. The jury heard Trump discussing the financing options and the company structure and the plan to reimburse American Media Inc. And the jury decided that Trump was guilty based in part on what they heard on that tape. The tape was powerful evidence. The tape was decisive evidence. The tape helped lead to Trump's conviction on 34 counts of falsifying business records, and Trump's response was to get absolutely furious and defensive. Trump attacked the tape and questioned its authenticity. Trump attacked Cohen for recording him without consent. Trump attacked the prosecution for playing it in court and using his own words against him. Trump was angry because he knew how much damage it did to his case. Trump understood that his own voice on that recording was incredibly damaging to his defense strategy. Trump recognized that jurors were going to be influenced by hearing him talk about hush money and financing and corporate structures designed to hide the payment from the public and from voters. This also has major implications for Trump's credibility and his character. When jurors hear Trump on that tape, they're hearing Trump talk about suppressing stories. They're hearing Trump discuss ways to hide payments from the public and from voters. They're hearing Trump participate in planning a scheme to keep voters from learning about his alleged affairs before they cast their ballots. That tells jurors something fundamental about who Trump is as a person. That tells jurors that Trump is willing to use money and power to suppress information. That tells jurors that Trump is willing to manipulate the information voters get before an election. And that affects how jurors view Trump overall and how they evaluate all the other evidence in the case. So the recording didn't just convict Trump on the specific hush money charges. The recording also shaped how jurors thought about Trump as a person and his character and his integrity. The recording gave jurors insight into Trump's willingness to do questionable and problematic things to achieve his goals and win elections. The recording made Trump look like someone who is willing to use his money and power to manipulate elections and suppress information that voters need to make informed decisions. And that colors how jurors evaluate all the other evidence in the entire case and how they view Trump's overall credibility. Make sure you're subscribed to John Brown Show, because we're going to keep tracking Trump's legal cases. We're going to keep documenting how Trump's own words and recordings keep becoming evidence against him. We're going to keep exposing how Trump creates his own legal problems by refusing to stop talking. Because this courtroom moment where the jury gasped and Trump sat there with his eyes closed while his own voice discussed hush money payments, that was the moment that convicted him. That was the evidence that destroyed his defense. That was Trump's own voice becoming his biggest legal enemy. Share this video with everyone you know, because people need to understand what happened in that courtroom. Trump's own recording convicted him. Trump's own words proved his guilt. And Trump sitting there with his eyes closed, unable to even watch, as prosecutors played his voice, tells you everything you need to know about how devastating that evidence was. This is what happens when you can't control the narrative anymore. This is what happens when objective evidence like recordings exist. This is what happens when juries hear your own voice discussing the crimes you're accused of committing. Trump got convicted, and his own recording is what did it. This story continues. Stay tuned.